I will introduce Dylan Smith. He is the editor of the Tucson Sentinel, and he will introduce our candidates.
Welcome everyone to this discussion between the Democratic primary candidates for the office of Pima County Sheriff. As George said, I'm Dylan Smith, the editor and publisher of the Tucson Sentinel, your local independent watchdog news organization. I'm very honored to have the Green Valley Democrats ask me to moderate yet another discussion, and it's really great to see so many folks here on such a lovely afternoon. I've asked each of the candidates to approach today as a spirited, informal conversation rather than a formal debate. We've got a whole lot of topics to dig into today, so we've had to put a little bit of time limits on their answers, and so we can get to the many questions that folks from the public and people in the Sentinel newsroom have submitted to us. And because time can go by quickly when discussing such complex issues, let's respect the candidates' time, as well as the other audience members who are here. So please refrain from sustained clapping, cheering, hooting, hollering, booing during the debate, except for right now as I briefly introduce them. Sandy Rosenthal is a Tucson native, an Army veteran who was a former military police investigator. He retired as a lieutenant from the Pima County Sheriff's Department in 2015. His 36-year career there included stints commanding the SWAT team, working on the bomb squad, working as an administrator. And since his retirement, he's been involved in numerous civic organizations. Sandy, thank you for being here today. Chris Nanos is a longtime member of the Sheriff's Department, who was appointed sheriff in 2015 after local lawman Clarence Dupnick retired. He lost the 2016 election, but regained the office in the 2020 election. He began his law enforcement career in the police department of his hometown of El Paso in 1976, joining the Sheriff's Department here in 1984 as a jail guard. He rose to the rank of chief deputy before becoming sheriff. He's seeking his second full term. Chris, thank you so much for being here with us. So we're going to be spending our time digging into some specific issues about what each of you wish to accomplish if you're picked to serve as sheriff in this election, and how you would realistically get that done. The Sheriff's Department is a complex organization. It has 1,500 authorized employees. That's the largest segment in all of county government, more than double the headcount of any other department. The sheriff is responsible for managing deputies and corrections officers who daily make decisions that can literally be life and death. What about your experience, qualifications, and training make you the person to do this job? And Sandy, we don't have a quick draw competition on stage today, unfortunately. So we flipped a coin, and you get first shot. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Hello everyone, Sandy Rosenthal. And I am running for Pima County Sheriff, as he said. I'm here with my wife of 39 years. She's sitting in the middle. Could you raise your hand, Susan? Thank you. I am a father, a grandfather, a Tucson native, and I am looking to literally save lives at the Pima County Jail, protect our community. And we have a vast opportunity here to make changes for the good. We end up having a community that, working together, is capable of changing any issue that comes across. And so I'm looking to make those changes. I'm out to recruit, hire, and retain. The Sheriff's Department is very short-staffed. We'll probably get into those questions as we go further. And I want to make sure that our schools are covered. We end up taking care of our businesses. I have some wonderful plans for our businesses. And we want to make sure that as we go along, that as the sheriff, I have an opportunity to speak with you, to be present with you, and listen to what you have to say. Everybody should be safe. The other aspect is that, and I'm sure we'll probably get into this conversation in reference to the border. The ultimate goal is to save lives at the border, keep drugs from coming in, and make sure that our community is, as much as we can be, drug-free. So if you haven't or you're not aware, in a backpack, people crossing the border into Arizona, into Pima County, you can put 200,000 fentanyl pills in a backpack. That needs to stop. And I am the person to help curtail that and make sure that we stay safe in all aspects of our community. And as our moderator said, it's a vast, vast job, and the jail is a huge portion of it to make sure that we have the right medical care. I'm looking to ask both Banner and El Rio to locally take over medical care. One of the things that plays out in medical care is that you leave the jail and there's nobody to follow up on you. You're gone, you're out, and we need to change that. So it's called wraparound services. There's a lot of different things that we can do wraparound service-wise, and it is the future of our community, and we need to support it.
Chris Nanos, the same question. Tell us about your experience, your qualifications, your priorities if you continue as sheriff.
Well, first of all, I thank you for being here. Thank you for having us. And my wife, when were you all married?
December of '84.
Okay, so you got me about 2 months, I think. My 39th wedding anniversary was just a few months ago, so congratulations, Sandy. I say that because I know Sandy's wife as my wife. Having to put up with just a cop is tough enough. But if you're dealing with a cop who's rose through the ranks and been involved and engaged in administration and executive level type decisions, it's really tough. And I know Sandy's probably a lot like me, that we couldn't be here without our wives. So thank you, Ms. Rosenthal. Being the sheriff was never a goal of mine when I look back 48 years ago. I just wanted to be a cop, right? Just drive that police car, have my patch, and it was just the funnest thing. Probably still is, if you ask our young men and women out there. But as the years went by, 20 years in, I spent 10 years on the streets, and probably another 10, 15 years as a detective. I worked all over this department, from corrections to homicide or sex crimes, child abuse, patrol, fugitives. Every job I had, I never really wanted. But I also knew that every job I had, I never wanted to leave. They were such good jobs. They all have such great value and you learn so much about what public safety really is. You learn about your community. You learn about your coworkers, your subordinates, your bosses. And to go through every rank is growth, learning. And I think that's really where my advantage over Sandy is, that Sandy attained a very high rank. Lieutenant is something to be proud of, but that's our first level of management. There's 3, 4 other levels above that where you just don't know what you don't know until you've been there. As an executive level member, there's so much going on in that department, so many wheels are turning, that it's easy to stand back and read the papers or watch the news and make decisions, right? Make judgment. But the reality is those decisions and judgments you're seeing in front of you on the news is just that tiny of what goes on every single day. Right now, we're working a very tragic case involving a little 4-year-old who lost his life in a motor vehicle accident up in Reddington. We have 2 or 3 protests planned for the Palestinian protest in our community with TPD, with other agencies in the Valley that we're involved in and engaged in. These are things that are just happening. We have people in our jail our employees who work in some conditions that are just atrocious, to people who have to live there in places that are just atrocious. So I'm sorry, I've got to get used to look at that. I've gone over.
You can have a little bit of leeway to wrap up. Take 30 seconds.
My point is simply this. This is a tough job. It requires a lot, and it requires a team. I wish I could say I've done all these things by myself, but that's not the truth. It's furthest from the truth. I do have a good team. You meet them every day, and I'm so fortunate and blessed. So thank you.
So, Chris Nanos, as mentioned, Pima County is a border county. What role should the sheriff and the department play in addressing the many public safety and humanitarian issues associated with the border? And really, how big of a problem is undocumented immigration in Pima County in terms of local crimes being committed? And you have 2 minutes.
Wow. So the border in 2 minutes. Let me just say this real clear. My position has always been clear. The border is a federal issue. It is not a county issue. And the federal government has 50,000 HSI agents, a $50 billion budget. I think that if they need my assistance, we're in trouble. I deal daily. I get 3 text messages a day from John Modlin and his team. John Modlin is the Tucson sector chief. And I've been getting those text messages daily for probably well over a year and a half. John has my number. He calls me from time to time. I have his number. We have always and always will work closely with our federal partners. But what John knows and I know is we don't want to do Border Patrol's job, and they don't want to do our job. If they need our assistance, we're there. But clearly, when we talk about crime along our borders, as part of the question was, you know, we have the largest border of any county in the nation with that of Mexico, 126 miles. With that, we have some small communities along that border that we're responsible for. They make up less than 1% of our call loads every year. Less than 1%. I have 130-some thousand calls a year that we have to deal with in areas like Green Valley, Vail, Tucson Estates, middle of Tucson. I do not let politics guide my decisions as to where my resources should be. The last administration simply used the border as an excuse to put his staff down there and get grants, and we need this, and we need... I'm not going to do that. If the Border Patrol needs my help, they have it. But I put resources where they're best needed. We look at, just as we have before, where's our crime, where's our problems, where's our responsibilities, and we shift our responsibilities and our resources to those areas to allocate the resources that are needed to deal with those issues.
Thank you.
I think we all have a perspective that the border is, it is both safe and unsafe. And what I mean by that is that we have criminals that use the border to bring drugs, human trafficking across. We have people that cross the border and are looking for a better life in our country. Over 100 people every year, since Sheriff Nanos has been in office, die along that border. They need to be helped and taken care of. We work together with our federal partners. It's against the law in Arizona. It's 132323, which is that it is against the law to smuggle here in Arizona. So when you are bringing drugs across that border, you are hurting our community. It's not just Border Patrol. We have to be an agency involved in order to protect not only our own community, but to be able to keep those drugs from leaving here, Pima County, and going across the country. We will never know how many lives we save. Never know. But what we do know is if you take no action and do nothing to save the lives of people that have crossed the border, you do nothing to protect the public from drugs that are coming across, people will die. And that's not how my administration will operate. We will follow the rules, just like the clock here. I'm about to stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's get into the weeds a little bit more on a border issue that is probably going to become very controversial this year. House Concurrent Resolution 2060, the Protect the Border Act measure that many call a new version of SB 1070, is heading to a vote in November after Republicans in the legislature voted to put it on the ballot. What's your stance on that measure? How much would it cost? How would it affect our community perception of law enforcement? How would it affect our community overall? And do you want deputies doing federal immigration work? And Sandy, you have 2 minutes.
So since we're talking about our Arizona legislature, if I was in front of them and they were asking whether I supported it or didn't support it, I would tell them that I do not support a law like that. I agree with Sheriff Nanos that Border Patrol, that's their job. And we're not looking to do Border Patrol's job. I can't tell. I mean, I can sit here in this front row and go across, and I can't tell who's in this country legally or illegally. Don't put that on us. We don't have the computer software, the resources to do this. The jail is full. So I would certainly ask that it not be voted in a positive way. So how do we handle things? The answer to that is that we end up as a community. We've been successful at people crossing the border. They stay in our county for 72 hours, sometimes a lot less, and they move on. If I could have them cross the border in the appropriate manner, that's what I'd ask for. So the legislature is doing what they want to do, which is to bring it to the public. I will follow whatever law, and that's how I focus on things, whatever law is provided. So if you, the public, vote to have this particular law, then I will enforce it, but we'll be diligent about how we do it, because we do not want to be Sheriff Arpaio up in Maricopa County, for those of you that have been around. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, same question.
Can you repeat it? Because I don't know this.
Yeah, well,
but I just want to make sure.
On this, redo of SB 1070, the easy way to describe it. House Concurrent Resolution 2060 is going to be a measure on the ballot. It was sent there directly by the legislature. It's an initiative to basically reenact SB 1070. There's a few changes to it. But what's your stance on the measure? And how much would it cost us? How much would it affect our community's perception of law enforcement? And it just really, do you want deputies doing federal immigration work?
I think I've made it clear. I do not want to do their job, and they don't want to do our job. It's funny to me that the state will sit there and tell you that that border belongs to the federal government, that they need to act on it. And at the same breath, they'll turn around and say, if they're not going to act on it, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to give it to the county. The sheriff can handle it. Where is the funding? I battle with the board of supervisors every day on my budget. I battle with them. I need more cars. I need a new jail. I'm always needing something, right? I know that. And I'm never going to get everything I want. I know that too. But I need to make that fight. This is an unfunded mandate. How are you going to put that responsibility on a county sheriff whose jail is already in problems? And how, I concur with Sandy, this is just ludicrous. I'm praying and hoping that our citizenry knows better and will vote the right way and say no to this stupid bill. It's ridiculous.
Somewhat related, let's talk about Operation Stone Garden funding for a moment. The county's been rejecting that federal money for deputies to work with border and immigration agents for several years now. Sandy Rosenthal, would you urge the county supervisors to renew accepting these grants, or would you favor continuing to reject them? And take 2 minutes.
Sure. I do support Stone Garden, and the reason I support it is that it's your tax dollars. Just because it goes to the federal government, it's no different. It's your tax dollars. And when we fail to take any money, we are giving up our own tax dollars, our own resources. So what has to play, though, and this is where the experience on the administrative side of the department comes in, I have the experience to know how to adjust federal grants to allow us to make sure that it doesn't hurt us. So one of the arguments by the Board of Supervisors when the first turn down of Stone Garden was that it was costing us money in retirement. Well, we don't have to take a grant if we don't want it, but we also have the right to ask for it to be adjusted. And so that's where it's important that we make the changes that we need in our community so that Stone Garden fits with us. It allows us to get more deputies out in the farther reaches of Pima County. And under my administration, we will cover all of Pima County. That's the ultimate goal. When you give up an area, when you give up a responsibility, bad things happen. And they take, the cartels, they enjoy what's happening right now. They don't have to worry about any deputy sheriff being out along the border. There's no coverage whatsoever. Zero. Thank you.
Yeah. Chris Nanos, what's your take on Stone Garden?
We finally have something we disagree on. Stone Garden was a pension spike. I'll get to that in a minute. Here's the thing with Stone Garden. First of all, federal grants, you can't adjust. Those are federal policies giving their guidelines on grants. And what happens with those grants is simply this. The federal government will pay you for a salary of an employee, 10 deputies, for example. We're going to pay the deputies' salary. In this case, they weren't paying their salary. We're going to pay their overtime. But they would not pay any benefits. A deputy today costs us about $50,000, $60,000. That's his salary. What's missing is the 35, 45, 55% increase in benefits, insurances, retirement, all those things that the federal government has never and will never move on. In fact, it's not just Stone Garden. I now come in with a grant team and we look very skeptically at federal dollars. Nothing is for free. They dangle the carrot and you got to be careful. I understand they can be beneficial, but you have to be very careful. Stone Garden spiked this way. So Ajo is a town, a community west of here, very small, populous, about 5,000 when it's at its peak. Summertime, they're going to probably go down to less than 2,000. We have deputies down there assigned to work. It's not a pleasant assignment. They don't even have medical facility and cares for young parents. We have young deputies who have families and they start. Their closest baby care center is Phoenix. It's tough. And I've had these conversations with our administrator, our county administrator, and here's my plan. You want to work in Ajo, and I want you there, then we should be taking care of some of this. It's called special assignment pay. I'm going to be prepared this summer, after the budget's approved, to give an increase of 10% to all of our deputies, jail workers, our dispatchers, everyone as assignment pay. They get a 10%. That's how you get people to go to Ajo. You don't force them there, which has been done in the past with no benefits. And so what happens? They offered this free overtime in Ajo, and you had guys who had 17, 18 years on. Guess what? Your high 3 years is what you base your pension on. And these guys were smart. My deputies are smart. They figured out, hey, I'm going to get my high 3 by going to work Ajo and get all that free overtime. That's pension spiking. I don't want you going to Ajo because it benefits you. I want you to go to Ajo because it benefits our community. And we have people employed in Ajo, and they need to be taken care of. And it is a struggle. We've got young deputies there who have houses here, and they go there and they live in the fifth wheel. That's not right. And so we'll address that through another means, not federal grants.
So if we are looking at federal grants that, according to Sheriff Nanos here, that cannot be adjusted, then when he took 10 deputies that were scheduled to be out in the 3 Points area, I guess he did that against a federal grant, and I guess I would assume that that was wrong. The other side of the coin is that he has 10 deputies in Ajo, 10 out of 17. They can't even take vacation days this summer. So again, it's about doing the job right. You can talk about it, but you have to do the job. And so again, I'm saying federal grants you can request and make changes. Somewhere along the line, I guess you can't do that. So that's news. That's new, shall we say?
Chris, why don't you take maybe 30 seconds to...
Yeah. First of all, when I came here, the 10 deputies that he's referring to, that was nothing but a political favor done by the last administration for this county board supervisor out there. Supervisor Bronson, on day 2, when I told her I was removing those 10 deputies, see, again, like I say, I come in here and I look at a problem. And the problem is I have a Vail district that has officers, two assigned, where we know in the last 10 years that Vail district exploded at 19%. Yet where they had the 10 deputies was in 3 Points, where in the same 10-year period their population reduced 7.5%. The problem isn't that 3 Points doesn't need deputies. They definitely need deputies. But Vail needed deputies that were responding from the Rincon station at Catalina Highway in Mount and Tanque Verde, 45 minutes to get to their calls. That's not good policing. We built a station, and I took those 10 deputies that were designed for rural patrol, tell me Vail's not a rural community, and put them in Vail and said we're going to staff a substation for this community because they're exploding. Why would you sit back and let that happen? It's looking at your resources and saying, look, Sharon Bronson and I were friends. I don't know where she stands today. She cussed me out up and down because she was mad that I had removed those deputies. And I told Sharon, just like I tell everybody, I'm not going to let politics dictate where resources need to be.
So
to add to that, we're not going to, right now today, drive down Valencia. That area, 3 Points, some of those districts are from their station better than an hour away. I have 60 deputies an hour away from where they're supposed to be. So I got with the county administrator and said, we need to build a station more central. The station today for them is in the middle of the city. We haven't seen a substation in 40, 50 years. We built 2. I'm not done. If I've got your vote, we'll keep doing things. We'll keep looking at where are the needs. And we're dealing with 50-year-old beat lines and boundaries and districts. We came in and said, we've got to freshen this up. And we're still not there, but we're getting there. And we're getting better because we've done right in our recruitments and our retention and treating our employees and getting our staffing levels up. They're still not where they should be.
Well, we'll get into staffing. I would like to clarify, just simply yes or no on Stone Garden.
Yes or no on, I'm sorry.
On Stone Garden.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that was very
On this
clear.
point of violating a federal law that they think I violated, that was looked at by the grant management team at downtown, out of my office. They immediately said, no, the sheriff has a right to move people where he thinks they are, as long as it's a applicable to the grant. They looked at the grant. They approved the grant. This grant was done way before I came in office. And on top of that, that grant is audited by the Department of Justice, the federal government. They came in and they gave us not 5 stars, like 10 stars for doing such a good job in managing that grant.
So for over the past few years, there have been a great many deaths inside the Pima County Jail. How will you ensure that inmates, many of whom have not yet faced a trial, will remain safe while they're being held in your custody? Does the jail need to be remodeled? Do we need to build an entirely new one? And what more can be done to keep drugs out of the jail? Chris Nanos, you have 3 minutes.
Wow. Yes, we need a new jail. I've given a display to, I think it was your homeowners association groups at the board of, the Green Valley Board of CBC, and we spoke about the needs and all the problems at that jail. Does the jail though need to be $1 billion? If you're going to build 18-inch thick concrete walls and steel doors that cost you $22,000, yeah, you're going to spend $1 billion. But I think there's a better way to build a jail. In fact, the scientists will say that. Look at what they did in Australia in 2018. You just got to Google it. I know Jonathan and I have talked about this a lot. They have a jail that is, if you could picture this room as being your jail room, day room for prisoners. And we went with what is known as direct supervision, but we moved away from it. Direct supervision is simply this. You have a little one that you want me to babysit. I can do that with a baby monitor in the living room, watching TV, and then checking on your baby every 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever the rounds are you want me to do. Open the door, check, and go back. Babysitting, right? But is that safer or what's better? That I'm right there in that room with that child 24/7. We have 18 doors downstairs, 18 doors upstairs in a room this size, 72, 82, some 200 inmates in some of those spots. And we have 1, 2, 3 COs watching them. That's not direct supervision. Every 15 minutes they got to go by and look in a window this thick to see if there's 8 guys in it. That's not the way to do it. There's a jail cell that you could envision this room, and the only thing in here is cubicles, just like your office. One L-shaped cubicle. A bed here, a dresser here with a computer, everything his needs are right there, and where is your CO, your correction officer? Up above, watching, 24/7. There's no doors to replace. I got a lock on a door, just a lock. You would go and buy a deadbolt for what, 10 bucks, 12 bucks? I don't know, $18,000. Are you kidding me? So yes, there's a way to build that jail cheaper than what wraparound services. I want wraparound services too, but you have to be careful. If you're going to put wraparound services in that says, hey, you want rehab for drug abuse, then you got to be arrested. No, I don't want that. We have 2/3 of our jail suffer from mental health or substance abuse. We need to do better than that. But it's not on the sheriff. We shouldn't be making the jail an insane asylum. We shouldn't be making the jail a drug rehab place. That's where you can cut some of those costs by saying, yes, I do need a detox unit. I came in there, they had 7 beds for detox. We now have 40. Could I use 100? Yes. But do I need 300? No. Those things need to be elsewhere in the community. Don't make your jail your first stop shop for getting drug treatment, getting mental health. Get that somewhere else.
A couple parts to it, so certainly. There have been many deaths inside the Pima County Jail for several years. How will you ensure that inmates, many of whom who have not yet faced a trial but are being held pending trial, remain safe while they're being held in your custody? Do you think we need a new jail? Can we remodel the one that we have? And what more can you do to keep drugs out of the jail, that being one of the most serious problems?
So, in answering the question, which is that we have a jail that is currently being operated improperly. What is being left out in this conversation is that we have a tower. If you drive to Tucson International Airport, you might see the tower. It has pods inside, as the sheriff was describing. The jail was designed to have 2 pod officers in every area. And when the jail was originally built, it was for like 30-some people. Okay? That's been doubled. And it's being operated with 1 pod officer. That is the most unsafe, most dangerous thing I've ever seen. That's not how we do business. That's not how law enforcement works. So Sheriff Nanos wants to build a new, and I'll take it down from $1 billion to $850 million. Okay? That's your property tax dollars. He wants to build a new jail. I could take a quarter of that dollars and add on to Banner South Hospital off of Ajo and have a secure environment there for hospital care so that people that have drug abuse problems, people that have mental health issues, can go to that hospital. Yes, get them out of the jail. Or make the decision that the jail is where we're going to bring everybody. I agree. I don't think we should be arresting everybody that has mental health and drug abuse problems. But you folks all need to stay safe. And the only way for us to do that is sometimes putting them in jail. So part of making sure that they stay safe is having the staffing. Sheriff Nanos went on the news 2 weeks ago and said he's fully staffed. That's not the case, folks. He's short 150 deputies. Now I'm going to explain what he's going to tell you is that the jail, the sheriff's department, the county took away what's called PCNs, personnel control numbers. They took them away because he was misspending his dollars. So they lowered the number of people. They'll give him as many as he wants. It's not a problem. The money's there. They have 1,000 open jobs at Pima County. So we have to have the staffing in order to make sure people stay safe. We have to have the right medical care. And it's imperative that we train our people. The corrections officers, again, because they're so short, have not had an advanced officer training in 3.5 years since the sheriff's been in office. That's wrong. I'm sorry, that is wrong.
Let's talk about the rate of vacancies a little bit. Out of 1,500 people, there are, as of that last report, 152 unfilled positions, nearly 10% of the authorized total. So what can we do about that without breaking the bank?
So nearly 10% puts me at 90% is what you're saying? Well, that would be true, except, and I really, Sandy, being at this department for as many years, knows that these documents exist. They're not secret. He can FOIA them, he can public records request them, he can look at them here. The staffing at the jail, when I left here in 2016, our staffing, PCNs and EINs, employee identification numbers, this document is based on paychecks. So we're not giving you a paycheck unless you're actually, excuse my language, butts in a seat. When I left here, we had 1,686 employees. When I came back, we were at 1,282. Today, we are authorized 1,496. This document goes all the way back to 2005, 2008. This is the lowest we've ever been authorized. If I get to 100%, it's 1,496. It's not enough. And here's why. The Department of Justice for my entire career, 50 years, have said, here's the template we use for what should be recommended for a public safety agency. If you're a community this size and you have this many calls for service, you have this type of area to cover, they come out with, it's their number. Our agency should be 2.6 per 1,000 residents. Today I'm at 1.1 per 1,000 residents, less than half. I don't expect the Board of Supervisors to ever give me 2.6 per thousand. We've never been there. But I do see a need to at least get back those PCNs that he's talking about that were taken away. They weren't taking them from me. They were given, the last administration, for whatever reason, decided that it's more important to him, and that's his call, he's the sheriff, to come in budget. And so he quit hiring. But when you quit hiring, now you do what? You're faced with what we came into. Some 300, 400, 25% of our workforce gone. And I have a need to provide youth safety. I have a need to provide safety in that jail. 1 per 36 is what the design was. I was there as the first pod officer that he speaks of. We had 18 rooms downstairs, 18 upstairs, 36 individuals. I was the only one in there. And the thinking behind that is simply this. Before that time, when I went in that jail, I was a part of the old jail. The old jail, you walked around the bars every 20, 30 minutes. They threw stuff at you, you threw stuff at them. They knew that every 10 minutes you came by, or 15 minutes, who was in control of that? The inmate. So they felt like, how do we get control of our jail? The thinking was, you get in the middle of that pod, and you're the one with the most cigarettes. You're the one that has the supplies for that inmate, not some other inmate. And that's the thinking in theory. Sandy's right. 1 for 36, probably could do better. But our staffing numbers aren't there. When I came in office in 2021, I said I need 168 more deputies than I have. And the Board of Supervisors looked at me and said, well, hire them. I went, what? You're going to improve me to increase my... Says, you got 200 vacancies. Fill those, and then we'll talk about 168. Today, my jail is at 100%. Is it enough? No, but it's at 100% of my authorized strength. My patrol division is at 95%. But we got to keep track of attrition. It happens. People leave, come, go for numbers of reasons. That's life. But if you lose track of that attrition rate and understand that you've got 40 weeks of training to get a deputy trained, that means if I'm losing 1 a week, which is good attrition, you got to have 40 deputies hired just to break even. And so we keep that in front of us. Like I said at the start of this, there's a lot of things going on, and you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. And some of the numbers Sandy's thrown out today, I really want him to try to throw out some references to those numbers. 100 deaths in our deserts is so exaggerated. He's got no reference point for that. Did they find 100 bones out there every now and then? But those are bones that have been there for years. There's never been 100 deaths in that desert in any year. And he can't prove it. So.
Sandy, can you take about 10 seconds to address that, and then we can talk a little bit more about staffing?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to go back to the border. What I'm going to talk about that hasn't been talked about, unless you're getting to it, you asked about the deaths in the jail. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a document here from the medical examiner's office that has 58 names on here. 58, okay? 58 lives that have been lost related to the Pima County Jail. We're not doing anything. We have a blue ribbon commission to build a new jail. Since when does a building take precedence over people's lives? And so the reality of this is that you can talk about everything else, but we don't talk about what's important, which is the lives being lost at the jail. Why aren't we? Why are we bypassing that? You know, there are, because I'm sure the sheriff's, I heard him say it literally a few weeks ago. We haven't had a death in the jail for 9 months. Okay? If I have a heart attack here and you're doing CPR on me, did I die here or did I die at the hospital? When somebody's in a car accident and they die, all the reports show that they died at the scene. They died at the collision. We've now taken people's lives and sent them to the hospital. Deaths should not be tolerated. We need to take care of people. They have not been adjudicated. I'll let Sheriff Nanos respond, because I'm sure he's going to.
You knew that.
I did.
So the numbers are the numbers. And they're, again, certainly foilable, Public Records Act, all of those things. 2021, 10 deaths sent to jail. 5 of them, COVID. The jail is not safe and clear from what's going on in the world. We too saw millions of people die across this world because of COVID. We had 5, half of our deaths in the jail. 10 deaths, 2021. 2022, 10 deaths. 2022, we did a lot of things in place. Get masks for inmates, lock down the jail. Nobody could come in. No visitation. Visitation was on their phones or their pads. Lawyers couldn't come in. They had to do it all over the pads. Judges couldn't. We didn't hold court. We held video courts. We just locked it down. Still, we're losing people. We did vaccines. 15,000 inmates got vaccine. Still did more. Finally, in January of 22, we said, enough. You're an employee. You will be vaccinated. It was a tough decision. Probably the only sheriff in the nation who made that decision. But I'll say this. January 4th, 2022 was the last COVID death we had in that jail. And I can't take credit for it, but nor can my rival here sitting here say there'll be no deaths in the jail. Because we don't get to choose who comes to our jail. Right now I have an individual who's at the hospital. He has a brain infection. His crimes are horrific. We could never release him. I have 3 other individuals who are stage 4 cancer. They're going to die in my jail. I can't stop it. But they have a thing called compassionate release. Sandy refers to saying that, oh, we have this person who's dropped down on the bed, he's dying, and we get him to the... No, it's a compassionate release. I can't release him. When we see somebody in that state, we get them to the hospital. The doctors sit there and tell us, this guy's not going to make it. We want the family to have a chance to at least see him. And so we petition the court. The judge has to make that determination. This man's not going to make it. Can we get a compassionate release? It's a court phrase. It's not my phrase. The judge orders a compassionate release so the family can come and see their dying loved one. Those deaths are all counted in my jail. The previous administration did away with that. They did away with what we have death review panels. Every death in that jail, when I came back, every single death, we have panels of the public health department, the county attorney, the medical examiner's office, jail command staff. Everybody sits at a table and looks at those deaths and say, what happened? How could we do better? What can we do to prevent death? In this case with fentanyl, we electromagnometers, get 18-year-old kids in there trying to read an x-ray machine for his $30,000, $40,000 job, where an x-ray tech is making $250. But they do, and they find fentanyl, and they find drugs, but they're not going to find it all. We get dogs, specially trained, the first in the nation, 4 dogs specially trained to hunt for fentanyl, and they find fentanyl. But you know what, all these things, we come up with different ideas, but you know what the real key was? In September, our last death was. I recognized it. In October, we were at 96% staffing. That's the key. You have more eyes on, more hands on, more people there. It takes people. This job takes human people, that humanity, to keep lives safe. Not just in my jail, but in my community.
So, Sandy, Chris had the opportunity to talk about it a little bit in response to one of my questions, but this is a good segue back to that. What would you do about recruiting and retaining employees without blowing a giant hole in the budget?
Well, first, and you're moving on, and I will say this much, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry. there are numbers, correct. He hasn't told you how many people have died in the jail. These are names of people. We're talking about Yvette Gould, Andrew Rodriguez, James Vetti, Paul Lunbar, Nathan Beaver. These aren't numbers. These are people. These are all people. And this is from the time he's saying we haven't had a death in the jail. So again, it's how your truth or how your thoughts are. My thoughts are that when somebody dies, we should be looking at every death, no matter where they died at. If they died at the hospital or they died at the jail. That shouldn't be happening.
Well, give him a couple
I need to
seconds.
give him his numbers.
All right.
So we had 10 in 2021, 10 in 2022, 8 in 2023, 0 in 2024. That's 28 deaths. The names he's read, first of all, shame on anybody for exploiting somebody's name in a death because you think it's politically right. Let me just say this. This is a document that he's getting it from. It's a medical examiner's report. They put it online. I spoke with the county administrator, Dr. Garcia, Dr. Hess from the medical examiner's office, and said, what you've done is exploited a real issue out there to make it political. You need to report better, because here's what they're doing. They took deaths, remember the term, relevant deaths. What Sandy's not telling you is this. Those aren't in custody deaths. Dr. Hess would tell you, well, we did it with pre-custody deaths. What is a pre-custody death? How did I know they were? Well, you might have gone to the call, and you were there, and then you left, you didn't take him to custody. And while he was there, he was custody, and then you left and you died. Post-custody death. 29 days, they said. At 29 days, if you died from when you were in the jail and you were released, at 29 days, those 29 days, we consider that post-custody death. Well, how am I? Some of those deaths where somebody walked out and ran over. And I said, why 29 days? Well, not 40 days. Well, not 365. I'm only responsible. I can only be responsible. I'm like Sandy. Nobody should die. And custody, and this is what the medical examiner's office was really trying to get. Look, we think incarceration has an impact on somebody's life. It does. But don't do this. That's almost criminal. Look, I agree. 10 deaths is way too many. 1 death is way too many. But we shouldn't be exploiting this. We've had 28 deaths in 4 years. That's 7. I can list you all the names. I've got them. For going back 20 years. And the average, about 7 a year. 28 deaths, 4 years. It's going to happen. I wish it didn't. But every time it happens, we look at it, we study, we do our best. I have young men and women there who care, and they are doing their best. And to say otherwise is really disparaging their efforts. They see things that you and I will. I can't say that. Sandy and I have seen. They're seeing things that you would never see. And they have to go home with that.
What should the department be doing to help provide deputies and corrections officers with resources, social workers, therapists? Law enforcement is certainly a job in which people are exposed to traumatic situations. And since you brought it up, Chris, take 90 seconds to us through that.
So this will be short of that. So we created a wellness section. Actually, I met with Chad Casmore from Tucson Police. They deal with a group out of Sonoyta that does it's a program that started for PTSD for the military. And they said, absolutely, we'll take on law enforcement. And this wellness program called Boulder Crest has done tremendous. For me, it was really eye-opening, because I'm a cop, right? I'm a tough old cop. I don't need that stuff. That's for those sissy, come on, work. That's so wrong thinking. We have so many young men and women out there who, we brought on a psychiatrist into our office, and in the first day, her door was just darkened by a line of deputies. And I'm like, my goodness. So, yes, they too, they're a team that they need to be cared for. And so I can't do all that. But we know that there are people out there and programs out there that can, and we put together a peer support team that works alongside that for those issues.
So, Sandy, is enough being done? Could there be more?
No, I actually applaud the sheriff. He brought this together, and I think it's heading in the right direction. I would love for him to have a department psychologist on staff, but he's done fine. I have no complaints when it comes to that. It is the right thing to do. It is necessary. And go on to your next question.
All right. It is a little bit related to the jail situation, but we have a lot of other stuff to talk about, and we're starting to get a little tight on time. But more broadly, what can the sheriff do about fentanyl in our community? It's an issue certainly amongst the unsheltered, the people who do end up in the jail, but plenty of other folks, quote-unquote ordinary families end up affected by this. And Sandy, why don't you run with that
Sure.
for take a minute if you can.
Thank you. So one of the things that I will be doing as the sheriff is to make sure that we literally get our hands on the people that are brought to the jail, that are on drugs, on fentanyl, and get them the help they need. When you're arrested, you have a bond. A judge can determine where you go, whether you go for help, whether you end up in the jail. One of the things that I'm looking to accomplish is to get the judges to be absolutely specific on releases. And what I mean by that is that person, that new drug user, that person that is on fentanyl, you need to go for drug treatment on a Tuesday, Thursday. I'm releasing you from the jail. I can't do it my first year, and I can't do it my second year. But we will end up being part of the solution and making sure that these folks go to their appointments, making sure that we have the services to get them there. Because the only way we're going to stop this is to interrupt it. Wraparound services. It's a great idea. We have to take advantage of it, and we have to make it work. So we will focus on first-time offenders, and then as we grow the program, we will move on to second-time offenders. There was just a big article. People, to get them off of drugs, they have to want to do it. That's the reality. Well, sometimes we have to give them a little push, and a judge is a perfect person to give somebody a push.
Take a minute and
Actually, I agree with Sandy on the judge part of this, because I came in here thinking that all this judicial reform was going to happen and I'm going to make it happen. And I quickly was told by Judge Bergen, who probably rightfully so, sat there and told me, Sheriff, stay in your lane. I have no authority on who's put in my jail and no authority on who's released. And I wish I did, because there's a lot of people in my jail who are sick. If you're a sick person, you suffer from substance abuse or mental illness, you belong in a hospital, in a medical facility. My jail doesn't have that. Think of it, if you were a doctor, you just got through, maybe one of your sons or daughters got through college and did all that time, and they're going to be a doctor and they're going to go be at a jail? No, it's hard. It's hard to find the right people to come and work at your jail for a medical doctor. It's some challenges, and that's why we contract out for a lot of those services and do the best we can. But the bottom line is, when it comes to the people in our jail, we have some people there that are just bad people. Then, if you hurt somebody, you harm somebody, jail's the place for you. But we have a lot of people there that are just sick, and they shouldn't be there. We have other places for them. We have our crisis response center that deals with those suffering from drug addiction and mental health. Dr. Balfour from there took me on a tour. That's a great facility, probably about 300 or 400 beds. She deals with thousands of people all week, all month long. And they come and go, outpatient clinic, and not one person there is wearing a badge or a gun. They do a good job. As a community, we have programs in places that can do better than the sheriff can do for them. I can be a voice. I have been a voice. I agree with our judges need to take on a better role than they do. They are at least them and the court's officers, the county attorney, the defense attorneys need to get together and fight that battle a little bigger than they have been. But you're the voters. You get to have a say in it too.
Thank you. Let's broaden the discussion a little bit and talk about criminal justice reform overall. What's the right approach to policing in 2024? How's it different from when you started your career? And what's your take that may be even more developed since you began considering justice reform efforts? Chris?
So for me, it really is about community policing. You know, traditional policing was we just black and white. We arrested you. You did a violation. You called us. We came. We figured out. Community policing is a much bigger scale. It's about solving problems. It's about getting engaged with our community, having our community be engaged with us. You know, I give you an example, school resource officers. You know, people think, well, we have all these shootings at schools, let's park school resource officers out there and be the guardians there. You know, they are guardians, but that's secondary to the reasons for being there. We talked about the drug stuff. You're not going to arrest your way out of that. Well, maybe you can educate your way out of it. And that's what our school resource officers are part about getting in there and mentoring these kids. We know that if you don't graduate high school, you stand 7 times greater chance of being in my jail. How hard is it to graduate high school? I did it, and I wasn't there very much. So I say that, but the reality is, I'll give you a quick story. Young fourth grader. He's coming to school, he's doing great, he's doing well, and all of a sudden he disappears, he's out of sight. He's just not at school anymore. Day 2, day 10, day 12, whatever it is, he's just truant. He's not there any longer. And the schools, you know, sends their letters and sends their notes and calls and no Johnny. The SRO, because he can, goes to the house, knocks on the door. Mom opens it up, this trailer. She's got about 5 or 6 other little ones in there. Trailers are sty. There's no food. And this little boy is there, Johnny, 4th grader, trying to help his mom and his family out. That deputy immediately got the resources, got people plugged in from the food bank to the Department of Child and Welfare to everything to get them situated. That's problem solving. That's getting involved. And that's what we need from a community policing standpoint. More engagement with our community. It could be traffic. We're having a problem out there with traffic. You got people driving at 90 miles an hour because they could. There was nobody on the roads in COVID. Well, now everybody's out there and they're still driving. But what does it take to do that? What does it take to have SROs and traffic enforcement? Staffing. And so we need more deputies. We need more SEALs to be able to instill those programs. The 1,496, the 1,500 that Dylan talks about isn't enough. But that's my job, to talk to the Board of Supervisors and convince them that, all right, we got our levels to where you said we should be. Now I need more. And here's why. Because we know community policing works. It's about public safety. All we want to do is no different than you. The person on the south side and the person in the foothills. They just want to do the same thing. They want to get up in the evening, take their kids on a bike ride, walk their dogs in their neighborhoods, come home, have dinner, and just know they're safe. And that's my goal, is to give you that opportunity. why we're here.
Thank you. Sandy, same topic. Community policing is a one take on justice reform. What is yours?
So part of justice reform is what we talked about earlier or bail reform, is to be able to make sure that the right people are in jail and those that don't need to be in jail are out of jail. The way we have to accomplish this is there is a Democratic House bill that will actually support some of the things that we're talking about here, making sure that people are in jail that belong in jail and others should not be. That's where our wraparound services come from, and that's where our ability to make sure that when you're arrested the first time, we need to stop it there. And we need to get people out of the jail. It's not a healthy place. It's not a good place. The way we accomplish that is to have those wraparound services. That's a modern way of taking care of bail reform. Bail reform Sheriff Nanos ran on bail reform 3.5 years ago, and it got hijacked as a terrible, terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing. Bail reform done right is what we need in order to accomplish what isn't working. We've been doing this for generations, putting people in jail. We can't have that. So, Sheriff Nanos just talked about school resource officers. Folks, as a father, I raised my 2 kids during my career at the Sheriff's Department with my wife. There is listed on his website for his election, it says that every school has a school resource officer. Again, it's how you see things. When I read that, to me, it would mean that all 65 schools in Pima County has a school resource officer. That's not the case. What he has 20 school resource officers for 65 schools. The Sheriff's Department is short 200 deputies. The reason you see people speeding on the road is because there's not cops out there. He has two motor units, 2 full-time motor units. He's had 3.5 years to recruit, hire, and retain. We haven't even talked about what we're losing. He's losing 40 deputies a year. 40. We cannot continue that. That's why I'm running for sheriff, to make that difference. Staffing is abysmal. And he can say all day long that he's fully staffed. That's his choice. But it's not correct. And so when you fire 21 people during COVID, because they wouldn't take a shot, that's a choice. And when 80 corrections officers leave, again, because you're going to do that, that's a choice. And I don't have an argument with him doing that. That was his choice. But you need to be proactive. And you have to replace those people. You can't sit back and now say, well, gee, we're fully staffed because the county cut you down on numbers. That's not right. That's not how we do things.
Thank you. So something we're asking everybody we interview during this election season is maybe not exactly pertinent to this race, so I'll reframe it a bit. We ask a whole lot of politicians if they will respect the outcome of the election, win or lose. So I'm going to have you guys raise your hands to a couple of questions. Just here. Will you respect the outcome of this primary election, win or lose? Raise your hand if you're saying yes.
Yes.
All right. And if you are the Democratic candidate in November, win or lose, you'll respect the outcome?
Yes. Yes.
All right. And so because this is a little more serious now. Because this is a primary election, if you do not win this, I guess it's a July primary, which seems really weird to say in Arizona, but that's what it is, right? If you win this July primary, will you support the Democratic candidate in November? Chris,
Yeah.
30 seconds and
I'm sorry if you're a Republican. I just can't go. That party's been hijacked, and it's a shame. I don't even need to talk about it. I think everybody knows, but absolutely.
all right, Sandy.
And I'm going to say something different, folks. Hopefully I don't shock you. I'm running against Sheriff Nanos because he's not doing the job that needs to be done. And so I will not stand up and support him for re-election. It's wrong. We haven't even talked about, there's more issues that are involved here. So I will not stand up and say he should be the sheriff because he's a fellow Democrat. That's not right. People's lives are being lost, and we need to do the right thing.
So one of the things that Sandy has made it a point to show up to several very right-wing Republican-leaning radio stations with the Republican candidates, who are, by the way, both of them have steadfastly claimed to be constitutional sheriffs. If you know what that is, they're oath keepers, they're proud boys, all that support. They wear their cowboy hats, good belt, got a machine gun strapped to their chest. That's not who I am, and I'm not going to support that.
Now, each candidate will give a brief closing statement. We flipped a coin to determine who would go first. In your closings, tell us a bit about how you see the sheriff approaching the job of an elected official. How can you ensure positive relationships with the other elected officials in Pima County, other sheriffs in the state, other law enforcement, prosecutors here across the state, and certainly, how can you keep the confidence of your constituents? And Sandy, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, folks, first of all, again, for coming. We certainly appreciate it. My job as the sheriff is to interact with all the other elected officials. I have the support of Sharon Bronson, former board member, the former county attorney, Barbara LaWall, the current Board of Supervisor member, Dr. Matt Hines. I have the support of 2 legislators, the Hernandez sisters, and my relationship with them, with all of the elected officials, is excellent. And sure, will we have some disagreements? Absolutely. But we will have the ability to talk things out and make the appropriate decision. I may lose some, but I'll also win some. And again, right now, the job is to go out, recruit, hire, and retain our people. We cannot live losing 40 deputies a year. Currently, they're running an academy every 8 months. Think about those numbers, folks. You can't do it. You can't do it. They graduate, I think there's a class of 50 right now, or 55. He graduates 50 of those. They're gone. He's got 10 additional people. You have to have the administrative experience, which I have, in order to go out there and do the job. I worked in personnel. I know what is required. I know how to shorten the timeline. I know how to get people hired in order to change our community and be part of our community. So I'm looking to be your sheriff. I will tell you the good things and the bad things, and I will tell you honestly, and you will hear from me. I will show up to meetings. I will be part of this community. I'm the only person that's been here twice as the district commander. Twice. I'm the co-founder of the Sheriff's Auxiliary Volunteers. Years ago, when I was a district commander here, they were having problems before I came down dealing with burglaries during the summer because people's homes were empty. I went up to Tucson and I got patrol cars. Sheriff's Auxiliary Volunteers went with me, and we brought down patrol cars and we parked them at 11 o'clock at night and picked them up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We made a difference. We also have, and made sure when people died here in our community, here in Green Valley, family members had all kinds of drugs. Long before Take Back the Drug program with DEA, we put containers. We made sure that containers were available for those drugs to be disposed of. That's me. I get things accomplished. I get things done. We haven't talked about any of this stuff. Sorry, I have one more.
All right,
Ladies and
take
gentlemen,
another 15 seconds.
sorry, one more thing. Ladies and gentlemen, when you drive around this community, there are blue lights and white lights up on top of the intersection. It's to get emergency vehicles to where they need to go. Law enforcement, fire, ambulance. That was a 5-year project of mine. It's done. I had to work with the different cities, all their attorneys, the state. I accomplished all that. I'm able to work with people. I ask for your vote. Sandy Rosenthal. I can make a difference.
Thank you. Chris Nanos, you've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's never enough time for me, sorry. Let me just say this. First of all, our staffing levels, we came in, remember, 1686 to 1282, down 400. Today we're 1,431 out of 1,496. That's 67, 65 short. Of that, over 30 of them are civilian employees. Our deputies are at 96%, and our COs are at 100%. Will we lose some tomorrow? Yes, because attrition happens for all kinds of reasons. But we keep a track of that attrition, and we know that, for example, DPS, they came out with a big recruiting just a few weeks ago. They're down 500. TPD came out, Chief Kazmar, good friend, had one of his largest recruitment efforts ever. Had a class graduate with 26 people. We graduated a class of 40-some. Today we have a class of 50-some in there. We understand that they're not all going to graduate. That's why you hold academies. It is sustainable if you've got a good goal in mind and a good team behind you. I'm not going to take credit for things that in 1982, when the SABs were built, Sandy was a patrolman. Wasn't a sergeant, wasn't a lieutenant. I'm just not even going to go. I didn't do anything that I can sit there and tell you that this was all Chris Nanos is doing. It's my team's doing. And one thing I tell my team is simply this. We have a culture in our department, and we want it to be one that meets the expectations of our community. When I talk to our cadets at our academy classes. You see them, they come in, there's a class of 60-some. They didn't know anybody in that class when they first got there, but yet when they graduate 20-some weeks later, they march together, they walk together, they stand up, sit down. They are a team, which is important, right? It's a tough job. No one can do it by themselves. You need that team. But I tell them one thing. Think about George Floyd. And everybody here thinks about that George Floyd incident. And you saw a homicide on TV. And I know it was horrific seeing that one officer with his knee on there. But that's not what got me. What got me was the 4 or 5 officers standing around doing nothing. You see, what happened there is they lost their individualism. We do that. As an agency, we do that. We bring them together as a team, which is needed. But we need to encourage their individual thinking as well. I tell them every day, think about what got you that job, what got you in that seat in that classroom. It wasn't anything I taught you. It wasn't anything we can give to you. It was your heart. It's what you came there with. And that heart you got from your loved ones, your moms, your dads, your sisters, your spouses, your school teachers, don't lose that. Don't ever give up that heart. That's what we want for our deputies. That's what we want for our community. And that's what we're trying to do every day in that agency of mine. So thank you for being here. I'm sorry for running over probably every time.
Thank you both very much for being part of this discussion. Thanks to Green Valley Democrats for organizing this, and of course the amazing staff here at City. And also, I really want to thank the rest of our TucsonSentinel.com team. Raise your hands, guys, and they helped make this happen. And you can stop by in the lobby, say hi, get yourself signed up to our Watchdog update emails if you're not already. And really, we owe these candidates thanks for sharing their ideas, their passions with us here today. Sandy Rosenthal, Chris Nanos, thanks so much. And to each of you for coming out on a beautiful, sunny, if not brutally hot afternoon to be a part of this. Please give yourselves and the candidates a round of applause.